he was right about something, because usually he tells you why he was right about something. But if you ask Simon to show you the electoral map he drew of this election over 2 cycles ago, two presidential cycles ago, he would have hit the exact number that we hit in the last election. In politics, foresight is an almost non-existent thing, right? The exigency of our lives to the day-to-day force us not to have that long ball picture. Simon Rosenberg is a guy that has always had that long ball picture, and you know, his position and in the fight changes. I remember when Simon was a really conservative Democrat. Today, I think he's a centrist, pro-business Democrat that I think does a lot of things, but he's very progressive on issues that are important long-term to the country. And it's always a pleasure to partake the stage with him. Today, I have the distinct honor of introducing a new friend that I met in the United States Congress. Representative Denham, as someone that, as I said to someone, if a Hispanic drew the prototype of what an American would look like, it would look like Congressman Denham, right? Farmer, someone who is tall and leads from strength. And on this immigration issue, we have had a tremendous lack of leadership. And Representative Denham stepped up when it was hardest and held up the flag in a tough time. It is that kind of bipartisan leadership that we need to move what is, I believe, one of the fundamental issues that this Congress faces. It is not only an economic issue, it is not only a humanitarian issue, it is an American issue which demands finding a solution for. And normally I would go and describe all that before I would let my Republican counterpart do it. But with Representative Denham here, I feel perfectly comfortable that the issues that he's going to speak to about immigration are the exact things that I would talk about. And perhaps in the history, at least in my history in Washington, which goes back at least 2.5 decades, I have never seen an issue with more buy-in from more different groups. Religious groups, labor groups, business groups, technical groups, education groups, all of them agree that we need comprehensive immigration reform. And so it has been my tremendous pleasure to work with Representative Denham, and I have to tell you, he's doing the lion's share of the work at this point. My job was to get a few Democrats on board, and we did. We got 95% of the Democrats. Today, we can announce one new Democrat, which is Raul Grijalva, who was pulling away from the left, so we got him to come back to the middle, and so he signed on today. Tomorrow, we may get a new announcement, but I'm going to let Representative Denham, who's done all the heavy lifting on that, do it. But I watch him on the floor. He's working his side of the aisle, and he's working it hard. And he's making a difference to our country, and he's making a difference on this issue. I have to apologize because I had a technical glitch in my office, and we triple scheduled me. Double is usually doable, but triple makes it a little bit hard. So with that, it's my great honor to introduce Representative Denham.
Well, you hear in Congress a lot of members say, my friend on the left or my friend across the aisle. It gets thrown out there very loose, but I will tell you, Joe and I have not only created a great bond, but a great friendship that will transcend politics. We want to find those people that are just going to be honest about issues. If we can all agree that there's a problem, then we ought to all be able to agree on some type of solution. But just taking a back seat and doing nothing is not only irresponsible, but on this issue, I think it's un-American. We have to fight to make sure that we've got an immigration system that works. We're a land of immigrants. I mean, this is a country that you immigrate to and you can become an American. So it's an issue that I'm passionate about, but I am frustrated. I'm frustrated with both parties. I've been frustrated with for a while now, saying, show us what we can be for. Let's get a bill that we can get Republicans and Democrats on to show what we're for. And this is a bill that I spent a great deal of time with Representative Garcia. We talked about it. He's been very open to taking amendments. My amendment was the first one on the Enlist Act. I believe very strongly that as a nation of immigrants that has had immigrants in every single war that we've been in, we should be opening our arms to those that want to be patriotic to this nation and have the willingness to put their lives on the line for our country. And so he accepted that amendment, but as I've talked to other Republicans that have said, well, there's this glitch or this technical issue. Tell me what it is. But doing nothing is not going to happen. The excuses, it's time for the excuses to end by both parties. And I would say that on this bill, the Democrats have stepped up. They've knew that we had huge issues with the border security piece in the Senate bill. The Senate bill was never going to get a vote. So they took the Republican version, the McCall bill, that has now been added to this. I think it's a responsible way to govern. Now we need to make sure that we get the entire House to engage on this. And, you know, there are a number of timelines, and certainly there have been a number of big issues, some unexpected issues that have come up this year. But we've got to end the excuses, and we've got to come forward. It's a multi-generational problem now. This is something that has transcended 3 decades. It is not just an issue of immigrants. It's an issue of safety in our communities. It's about building our communities. We can all agree that the border security is broken today. While we've improved it and we've spent more money on it, there are still border security challenges. We have no internal security right now to speak of with our employers. So if we're going to address our overall unemployment rate, we have to have that internal security too. But I will not let members off the hook on ignoring that we have 11.5 million people here today that are in the shadows, that have different issues within the immigration process that we've got to solve. Now we're starting to have that debate. So it's always tough to get Congress to focus, but we're at least engaging in that debate and having those types of discussions to, you know, if you're going to tell me that you support no pathway to citizenship, then tell me what you do support. You know, what do you do for the 40% that came here on legal visas that aren't breaking any laws? You're not going to deport them. What do? Do you just ignore it? Ignoring it is not a solution. The 2.5 million kids that came over to no fault of their own, many have no birth certificates. Many don't know what Social Security number they're using once they graduate from high school and look to go to college or look to sign up for the military. What do you do with those dreamers? Some of those dreamers are no longer kids. They're in their 30s. Some could be, you know, into their 40s now. It's an issue. And we ultimately have to address the entire undocumented population. If you can't pass a background check, then we don't want you here. And we're going to make sure that we have safe communities in that process. But if you've been here and you're paying taxes and you're contributing to a community and you want to be an American, why wouldn't we open our arms up to that American dream? So this is something that's passionate. I know for me, you know, a lot has been made out about my district or the Central Valley or California or an ag area. It's personal to me. You know, I've helped family members become citizens. I've seen how flawed our system is from the inside. I've seen the bureaucratic hurdles you have to jump through. I see a lot of the lawyers that have given questionable legal representation to people that are just trying to file their forms. So I've seen it from the inside, and I'm not willing to sit on the sidelines and watch it continue to happen to other families or to other communities, or to see this challenge that we have today grow. I want a solution. I want a solution once in my lifetime that will transcend, go across me, my kids, my grandkids. I want to fix this and fix it right. So I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Okay, so let me explain how we're going to move forward. And we really appreciate the Congressman's time and his courage for being here today and for the leadership he's shown on this tough issue. And I just want to make brief remarks, and then we'll move into the question and answer period of this discussion. I'll introduce our moderator here in 1 second. Is that, you know, what's interesting is just sitting here, I'm sure there are people in this room thinking, wow, you know, here's a Republican who gets it, right? And why does this seem so unusual? And the truth is that it isn't that unusual. And I think that in this time, in recent years where there's been more polarization and partisanship than there had been in Washington in previous times, it's critical to recognize that there has been strong Republican leadership on immigration reform going back a generation, whether it's Ronald Reagan or the Bush family or John McCain, or if you look at the big chunks of the Republican coalition that are working hard every day, right, to pass an immigration bill, Chamber of Commerce, tech groups, ag groups, evangelical organizations, Catholic organizations that are more generally identified with the Republican coalition than the Democratic coalition. this is an issue that has always defied easy partisan labels. It's never been a Democrat-Republican issue in the way that we understand issues like that in Washington today. And even if you look at what happened in the Senate, right, you saw guys like John McCain and Congressman and Senator Flake, right, really out there leading from Arizona, a state where this was supposed to be hard politics, right? Not just following, but leading and crafting what was a wonderful bill, right? And this was a very bipartisan bill that passed in the Senate. And I think that one of the things that as we'll get into the Q&A, one of the things we'll be discussing is what happens now, right? Speaker Boehner said yesterday that we may not have, there won't be a vote this year. Where do we go from here? The reason that I remain extraordinarily optimistic as somebody who's worked on this issue from the beginning of it in 2005 is that immigration reform is different. This is an issue that has long had Republican leadership. This is not Obamacare. This is not about taxes. This is not about deficits. This is something fundamentally different. And I think that there is, even among Republican voters, a majority of Republican voters, right, not just the constituency groups, want this to get done. And so I think that I'm really glad that the congressman is here today. It's a sign of the kind of leadership that we need in Washington. There's too much cowardice and not enough courage in this city in these days on what are consequential and tough issues. And I just would like to, in this room, just acknowledge and thank the congressman for his incredible leadership, the first Republican to jump on the Senate, a Democratic leadership bill, right? No easy thing. So, Congressman, thank you for what you've done. And thank you for not just stopping and trying to bring others along. To lead the rest of the conversation, I'm going to be filling in for Joe, so if there are questions geared towards the left of center side, I'm going to take those, and if Congressman Horsford shows up, he will replace me in the seat. Is a new friend, and I'm probably going to say your last name wrong, Fernando, but because I haven't practiced it, Fernando Espuela, right? Did I get it right? Espuelas, who is turns out we have many mutual friends going back over a long time. He hosts a radio show on Univision every day at 2 o'clock, a nationally broadcast radio show that, of course, is not here in Washington, but we'll have to fix that, right? And who's been a thoughtful advocate for trying to help the two parties come together and find a common ground and a solution for this important issue. He's going to lead us the rest of the way. We're going to open up to your questions. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Well, thank you very much. And I wanted to get started with something that I think is part of the debate that really often gets lost. You brought it up, and I'm wondering what everyone else thinks about this as well, which is immigration is a strategic issue for the United States. As we look at demography, we know that to be like a European country, let's say, for example, and we have declining population, we have declining economic power, declining national power. As you very well said, we are one of the few countries in the world that can actually incorporate people and make them into Americans and be able to, just to be very cold about it, extract the human capital from the rest of the world and be able to integrate it into our own country. Now, that is not a left or right issue, that's a national issue, and it's an issue that as we look 50 years into the future, if we manage the policy correctly right now, we will continue to lead the world. How much of that is being discussed across the parties, and is that really the bridge?
Congressman, before you go, I'd like to make sure you have the mic. Here, let me give you this one. So, you've got it. Okay, just turn it on. Make sure it's green. Push it hard again. One more time. Okay, perfect. You're ready.
So I guess the question is, how much is that particular element of the policy ultimately a bridge that will bring together your colleagues?
It's a major issue, and it's one that we've discussed in conference a few times. Obviously, when I get up and speak, people know that I'm looking at it from my own personal background as well as from an agriculture background. But there are members of our conference, my budget committee, or Ways and Means, that will talk about, if we're really going to save Medicare and Social Security, this is a major part of that solution. We're going into talks about the CR and the debt. Undisputable, this is $1 trillion over the next 2 decades. Dealing with the taxes as part of that, I mean, these are all economic drivers. On top of just having an immigration policy that works. We want the best and brightest here as well. I mean, that's going to allow us to have that American capital that will allow us to grow businesses, both small and large. Not only our ag economy that is moving to other countries right now, but in the high-tech world too. They're relocating some of their businesses or expanding in Canada to just be close enough to the U.S., but moving people there rather than right here where we should be looking at our own unemployment rates and finding ways to solve many of our problems at the same time. So we are having more of those discussions. It's just been a challenge, I think, to get this Congress to focus. We've had Syria, we've had debt ceiling, we've had some big issues that have come up, but I think our biggest challenge with this bill is there's no deadline. And unlike the Farm Bill or the debt ceiling or the CR, these other bills have timelines and seem to continue to get pushed in front of immigration. At a certain point, we've got to draw a line in the sand, and we need to get so much support, so much pressure that we say here's the line in the sand, this bill needs to come up. Or let's have the entire debate on all aspects of immigration. If it's going to be a piecemeal approach, if it's going to be a half a dozen different bills, then schedule them to come up. Let's make sure they've all been through committee, and let's hear them on the floor and have a full debate for the American public to engage on.
And I just would ask, as the stand-in for Joe for a second, how much do you think has damaged the debate that Democrats have focused so laser-like on, and this sounds weird, I know, but on the human component as opposed to the economic component? It seems to me the Democrats are, obviously, they feel your pain, but ultimately it's about building coalition, so it's talking to the other side and being able to possibly much better in this conversation.
Yeah, and I think I'm getting a little feedback on this. Let me do my best. Look, I think that we're at a phase in the debate where the Democrats would be smart to focus more on the benefits the bill would bring than on the politics of what happens to the Republicans if they don't play ball. And I think that, I've been a little bit personally surprised, given that the CBO report was so much better than we ever could have imagined. Right? I mean, who would have imagined that immigration reform would bring $1 trillion of deficit reduction, 5 percentage points on GDP? I mean, this was an incredibly well-crafted bill out of the Senate. And I think and there are people in this room that I work very closely with, that we've been way too focused on the politics of the issue and not enough on selling the benefits of the actual legislation. And to convince because this is not an Hispanic issue. This is not an Asian issue. This is not a Filipino issue. It's an American issue. And I think that America will benefit from immigration reform. All Americans are going to benefit from this bill. And I think we need to do a better job, as a party and as a family, making the case that, this is not about just benefiting Latino families, but it's going to benefit every American family and bring the American people along in a meaningful way in the conversation instead of giving them an out where they don't have to pay attention. So I do think that we should have shifted more after the CBO report to selling the benefits of the legislation. And hopefully that will happen as we go into this congressional debate.
Well, I want to open it up. I don't know if anybody here has a question.
Well, first of all, I think we need more champions. And so I think that there are a number of members that have made enough statements out there in the press. I mean, I've got a target list of about 40, 45 members that I continue to whip every day and to talk to them and address their concerns. But I think that we have to start with that list. My goal, again, is to grow the amount of support on this issue that we force a vote in the House. It doesn't have to be H.R. 15, but then what are you for? So if there are components of that you like, then let's put them in a bill format and let's bring that through the committee and ultimately have a full debate on the issue. But just saying we don't have enough time, or maybe next year, or maybe the next administration, you know, at a certain point we have to say enough is enough. And I think you're starting to see the American people really start to focus on the debate and have that be a big part of the discussion.
But you don't have any particulars in mind who would be next?
I do. You know, this is, for us, it's a momentum builder too. And so we have 3 new members that will be coming out this week. I would expect more to come on next week, but I'd rather have them make their announcements than me break it for them.
Tracy, could we flip and give him the mic with the wire, and then, yes, and then use the mic? Yes, thank you, Tracy.
And just to follow up on that, Congressman, we've been told by different members of Congress that there will not be a vote this year. Are you as convinced as those members of Congress?
I still think a lot can happen this year. I mean, obviously, it's a race to 218, and once you get to 218, you know, there's a lot more motivation to get something done. So I know that Garcia and I have some work cut out for us, and we're going to continue to do that on a daily basis and try to get as many members as possible. The calendar also changes too. So we've seen special sessions. We've seen more days added to the calendar. You know, whether it's immigration or the whole debt ceiling debate, you know, we have some big issues, as well as the Farm Bill, that all have to get done this year. So there could be a chance that we add more time, and if that happens, that gives us more time to continue to push on immigration.
And another question, Jordan?
Congressman, Jordan Fabian from Fusion. It's obviously the Euro Party's leadership who controls a lot of those questions, whether to expand the calendar, what to hold a vote on. So I'm wondering, have you taken these concerns directly to those leaders recently, and what's the response you've gotten from them, and have you been frustrated by the way they've handled the issue thus far?
Again, I'm frustrated with both parties. I don't think that this is a debate that can be blamed on either party. Under Bush, who really wanted to get immigration reform done, Republicans killed it. Democrats had control of both houses and the presidency and decided not to take the issue up. But rather than place blame on either party, let's focus on solutions now. And we have some good legislation by both parties. The real question is, when are we going to bring it up? And so I've taken that to all members of leadership. We've had some, I would say, some very strong conversations, and we're going to continue to have those. We've got a couple more meetings next week, but ultimately I want to see when we're actually going to schedule it for floor debate. The question they've had back from me is, show me the support in our conference. And so we've circulated a letter, trying to get as many Republicans on that letter as possible, you know, as well as we're going to try to continue to get more and more co-authors on this bill as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Heather Stewart from NAPSA, the Association of International Educators, and I'd like to echo my colleagues here there and thank you for your support for HR 15. NAPSA represents people involved in international education, and you mentioned the desire to attract best and the brightest to the United States, and we are very concerned about the slow progress of immigration reform, and I'm wondering, do you have a recommendation for advocates on how to join in pressuring your colleagues to bring a bill up for a vote? Everyone in the immigration community, not that I can speak for them, I apologize, people really are eager to be helpful and use their energies to move the debate forward and come to a vote. What can we do to be helpful? Thank you.
I don't think it does a whole lot of good to pressure members. I know when I get pressure and threats, you know, it forces me to take a stronger position. I think it's important to explain to people, or explain to members, and really solicit the feedback. If you don't like this bill, tell me why. If you like another bill, then explain to me how that addresses the entire issue. Because we can't just ignore the pathway to citizenship or 11.5 million. We have to be able to address all aspects of this. If you're just going to say we're just going to do a border security bill and wait for what? A decade, 2 decades? And then how big of a problem is it going to be? I mean, no matter how big of a wall you build, if we're creating jobs here, if we're creating a better life for people, they will find a way to get around that. So that's why we need the internal security systems as well as making sure that we have to have a pathway. So as far as pressure, I think the greatest pressure it comes in numbers. I mean, that's why we're so focused on getting more and more members and making sure that this bill is a bipartisan bill. You know, and if there are members that don't want to sign on to this bill, then what are you signing on to? And let's make sure that you've got your own solution. But doing nothing is not an answer. You know, I go on a lot of the conservative talk shows too, and they try to, you know, say everything is amnesty. What we have today is amnesty. We have doing nothing is amnesty. And I'm for doing something and trying to find an overall solution. Yes, we've waited too long. 30 years is too long. It affects all of our communities.
Someone else? Ma'am?
Well, I've introduced the Enlist Act. I mean, that is the quickest pathway to citizenship. It's quicker than anything in the Senate bill. It is the quickest way under H.R. 15. It's something that we have always done in the past. You know, I served in Desert Storm with a lot of Filipinos that gained their citizenship through a similar type measure. So the Enlist Act is a way to get Republicans and Democrats to come forward. I would like to see the Enlist Act as part of the NDAA bill. So, you know, we could be dealing with a early portion of immigration within another bill itself. There are other bills coming out. Darrell Issa has a new bill dealing with becoming a provisional, getting your provisional status in 6 years, or eventually becoming a legal permanent resident. It doesn't deal with a full pathway, but it addresses one aspect of it. I would expect other bills to come out like that, as well as Eric Cantor is still working on the KIDS Act, which would include part of the Enlist Act as well. So I think there are other ideas, but again, if you have ideas, put them on paper. Let's get co-authors. Let's get the American public involved, but we can't afford to waste any more time.
Elise, can I just make one quick comment on that? Is that, and also, you know, Representative Goodlatte has floated this idea of no special path, which is not something that may be coming out in a proposal, but it's an idea that's been out there. But I do think, I just want to say one thing, is I think, Congressman, for the Democrats, this idea of provisional status is just never going to fly. And I think Congressman Issa is frankly wasting his time. And I think it's, and I don't think that I think our party should be a little bit more aggressive at sort of saying there's a lot we can negotiate on, there are certain things we can't, and because the idea of provisional status, I mean, practically, people are just not going to come out of the shadows if there's a chance that once they register, they can be used, that information can be used to deport them 6 years later for things that are not completely under their control. And I think that that's, you know, I think that's one of the pieces of this debate, because I think there's enormous common ground. I think that if you were fair today and looked at where the bills that have come out of committee on the Republican side, and frankly, let's just also acknowledge that the Republicans, we are closer to a deal today than we've ever been on this issue since it started 8.5 years ago. The House Republicans have come much further than ever before, and I don't think, frankly, they've gotten enough credit for how much they've moved from where we were a year ago in this debate, which is we were talking about self-deportation, you know, in the presidential debate. We're in a very different place now, and I think that, you know, so I think you could see a deal on interior enforcement. You could see more W visas, right? You could see, you know, we already did the deal on the border security, right, to your point, right? There's a willingness to do the deal. I think the place that Democrats are just never going to go is in any kind of provisional status. And I think that it will delay, this, I'm just giving you my 2 cents on this, because I think this is going to become, I think Representative Goodlatte has been more aggressive about trying to find another way to get there, which satisfies, I think, the very real Republican concern that people shouldn't be rewarded for bad behavior, right? There shouldn't be, we should not set up a situation where if you've broken the law and jumped in front of the line, or if you've jumped in front of the line, which is a fairer way to say it, then you shouldn't be rewarded over people who've done the right thing and applied. I think that's a reasonable thing that Democrats have to listen to, frankly, in this debate.
That is a reasonable thing, and my conversations with other Republicans would be that this is not a special pathway. 6 years of provisional status, 6 years, pay your back taxes, pay fines, pay an application fee, start all of the other processes, and pass a background check. I mean, the background check is a very important piece of this. And then your reward for that is to do it all over again.
Right.
Another 6 years, another,
Right.
They verify that all of your back taxes have been paid, another fine. I mean, it is a lengthy process. So you are at the back of the line. 13 years is a best case scenario, except for our dreamers, which you have to address differently. And I think Republicans are open to addressing them differently. There just hasn't been a bill out there to do that, which is why this debate is so important. We need to. It is not a simple topic. It isn't a one-size-fits-all. It's going to be complicated, but Congress should be able to do complicated things.
It seems also that any provisional status, in a way, is a drag on the economic contribution that these immigrants can make because of the psychology, right? Of, well, I may or may not be here. Will I make investments? Will I plant roots? Will I actually do those things that we know in a straight bill like you described would create this incremental economic activity?
Yeah, and I don't think when we talk about a piecemeal approach, I believe a piecemeal approach is many different bills coming up at the same time that should address all aspects of this, not half measures that don't address the problem. If you just do provisional status, I would agree there will be a large percentage of folks that don't sign up, and it never solves our problems. It doesn't allow us to find out who the guys are, the bad guys that are in our communities, to allow them to, law enforcement to be engaged. But a provisional status within H.R. 15 will allow people to come forward. Not everybody's going to want to become a citizen, and that's okay. But they should be able to gain their legal visas back or have a provisional status. I think that's an important part of that. But saying you could never become a citizen is, to me, un-American.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
No cutoff point. I'm going to stay on this issue until we get a resolution, until it's something that I believe is not only passed, signed into law, but actually implemented correctly. So I'm going to stay on this, and I believe that when you build up momentum, you also build up opportunities. I think a perfect example of that is the subcommittee I chaired last year on FEMA. We passed the bill, we got bipartisan support, and we continued to build more and more co-authors, passed it off of the House floor, but knew it was never going to come up until we had the momentum to get it done. Well, Sandy, the storm hit the East Coast, and we had an appropriations bill. We were able to get the bill done with that type of pressure added to it. So immigration could have a similar type scenario. I mean, could it be done under a grand bargain because this is actually something that fits into our overall debt debate? There could be a number of different opportunities that go to work simultaneously to help us to solve multiple problems at once. But yeah, my goal would be to get it done this year. I still think that we have time to do it. I still think that we need to take the debate up this year. But regardless, I will continue to fight on January 1st next year and continue this momentum that we have going right now.
We'll take 2 last questions before we close up. Sir.
Thank you very
give us 1 second because it's just recording.
2 days ago, Representative Gutierrez asked President Obama to do a sort of a DACA for all if Congress can't pass any sort of CIR bill. What do you think the congressional Republican response would be if something like that were to happen and sort of like going around Congress to expand DACA?
I think it would divide us further. We can't continue to operate under executive order. We need to have the rule of law, and it needs to be fair for everybody. And I think we're going to get our best solution by getting both parties and both houses to work together. I don't think you can just automatically dismiss the Senate, but I do think that the Senate bill has flaws. And now it's time for the House to act, and act in a way that we can get the best solution by both parties and both houses coming together, and send that to the president. The president certainly should have input on what the final bill is, but I would hope that he would I would hope that this we can keep as much of the politics out of this as possible. The more politics that gets interjected into this, the closer that we get to Republican and Democrat primaries next year, or close to the election season, becomes a much more of a challenge to get this done. So, I mean, this needs to be a policy issue, not a political issue. And like Simon said, I think we are getting closer than we have been before, but we still have quite a bit of ways to go. I think the moment that we can engage on floor debate and really discuss real issues, I think will give Republicans and Democrats on both sides of the issue to come up and say, why is this bill too conservative, or why do you think it's too liberal? Is it, and really get down to the facts of this. It is amazing to me when I've taken it back to my district and explained to people, many of who didn't agree with me, that how you go through this 13-year process and how it's going to take much longer for many others, then you start realizing, I've had some very conservative people go, wow, that's too long. That doesn't sound fair. But you've got to get to that level of debate, not only within our districts, but within members of the House.
Okay, and final question, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Fran Bernstein with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Thanks again for being here. You talked about a race to 218, and I think many people believe that there is already support among 218 in the House for some sort of immigration bill. But let's say everyone agrees that there's enough votes to pass H.R. 15. How do you get past the barriers that the speakers put up? One, to not conference any House bill with the Senate bill, and two, the so-called Hastert rule, where he said that he would not put a bill on the floor that didn't have the support of the majority of the majority.
Well, there have been a number of bills that have not had the majority of the majority. So that is less of a concern to me. I plan on specifically speaking with the Speaker about his response this week. I'm not sure that that's his true intent. In the past, we've had leadership, as well as many members, talking about conferencing with the Senate. The Senate's done its job. I don't agree with the Senate bill. I mean, I think it does have some big flaws. I've heard from Democrats and Republicans on some of those different flaws, but they worked their will. They passed a product, and I think that we should work with them on coming up with the best solution. There are some great things in that bill, which are evidenced by what's in H.R. 15. There are a lot of Republican bills out there that have a lot of that same framework. My frustration is that we're not getting to that full debate. Not every bill has been through judiciary, and certainly we have no floor time scheduled to discuss all of these various issues within immigration. So, my goal is to get to 218 and then further beyond. I'm going to continue at the same time to continue to circulate a letter within Republicans to show the Speaker how much support there is within our conference. I think it's incumbent upon Republicans to show what we're for now, rather than sitting back.
That's terrific. Congressman, thank you. Fernando, thank you.
Thank you.
And any final thoughts before we go? Since what time is it? Well, we don't. Let's. He can have a private session with everybody after we end. But final thoughts. I mean, give us your your sense. I mean, you've obviously covered a lot of ground here today. Just if you have any parting thoughts before we go.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tremendous lift to try to get something done this year. After we missed that deadline before the August district work period, I knew that it was going to be much more difficult in the fall, and we certainly never anticipated Syria and some of these other events that took place. But even with that being said, we've got to move forward and continue to press and push to get more members on both sides of the aisle on this bill. And again, if there's something else that they have, the members that we've talked to, David Valadeo was a perfect example, had some technical amendments. Those amendments have been taken. Show us what you don't like, show us what you're for, but ultimately I expect members of Congress, you're elected to be a leader, then lead. Show us what you're for, show us what you don't like, but we've got to come up to a resolution that makes sense for the entire country. And we need to have a debate in front of the American public. So I'm hopeful over the next couple of weeks we show tremendous progress. Everybody that's watching on TV or listening, as well as everybody here, I would recommend that you go talk to those members that have expressed a real interest and ask them those same questions. Get what they're for. Get how they would change this bill if they don't like it. And I think the more momentum we'll build, the more that we will engage the speaker and get him to bring up this bill or a variety of other bills. But we've got to address the entire system. And I want to thank you for having me in today. And I look forward to seeing my picture on the wall.
We have to get a good picture. And let me make one final just exclamation point on something I got raised earlier, and I'll turn it back to Fernando for closing thoughts. Is that one of the most remarkable things to me about where we are at this point is that if you had said 3 years ago that the one area where the two parties in the House had agreed was on the border issues, right? I think most of the people in this room would have laughed at us, right? And I think I'll say something I don't know that the congressman would agree with, but I think part of the reason we're at this place is that DHS has done, and the administration has done a really good job in managing the complex issues around the border. And I think Janet Napolitano, frankly, who grew up in a border community from the border region in the United States, understood these issues as well as anyone in D.C. And look where we are today, just in terms of data, right? Net migration of undocumented immigrants or unauthorized migrants is now at 0, down from 600,000-700,000 a year, a decade ago. We have crime all along the U.S. side of the border, despite the rise of the cartels, is now down at historically low levels. And the safest large cities in America today, the two safest large cities in the United States today are San Diego and El Paso, the two largest cities along the border. Third is that this has all happened while this sort of security corridor has gone down, or the Iron Curtain has gone down between U.S. and Mexico. Trade has exploded. We're going to go from $300 billion of trade a year in 2009 with Mexico to close to $600 billion this year. And so when I was fortunate enough to meet with the president recently, before his trip to Mexico, and we got a few minutes along with a few other people to talk to him, I said, one of the things that I hope is that you take more credit for the policy success of your strategy towards the border. Crime is down, net migration is 0, trade has exploded, right? Jobs are being created. 6 million jobs now in the United States are dependent upon trade with Mexico alone, right? It's an enormous number. And this has been a success. And I think it's important to make that case because it will show that if we can make this stuff work, then we can fix the rest of the immigration system. It's a trust builder, right? It's a sense. And what happened in the House, right, is that the two parties were able to come together and find common ground on these border issues, in part because the Texas Republicans like McCall understood to a great degree how things had actually materially improved on some of these. They aren't where they need to be. There's things that have to be done. The Senate bill is certainly incredibly aggressive on border security and interior enforcement, but also it makes prudent and needed investments in border infrastructure that will facilitate the levels of trade that we're now seeing between the United States and Mexico. Our border infrastructure is wildly inadequate now for the levels of trade that we're seeing or the levels of trade that we want to see in 5 or 10 years out. And so the Senate bill makes prudent and needed investments in that. And I just want to praise another Republican, John Cornyn, who I don't agree with everything that he said during this debate, but his emphasis on the trade aspect of this and the economic development aspect of this has been right on. And frankly, I think he's been a very thoughtful and important contributor to this debate. So I think that there's a lot of evidence that, that a lot of groundwork has been laid here. If Congressman Horsford comes in, he's going to be able to give closing remarks. Is he here? Okay. And come on in, come on in. I know, we've been winging it a little bit today. Congressman Rosenberg, good to see you. And we're going to let Congressman Denham, if you'd like, would you like to stick around? Or if you want to go, Congressman, we're just wrapping up. So if you'd like to how about do the benediction, perhaps, on why it is that that we're going to see a good comprehensive immigration reform bill. But any remarks you'd like to make, we'll let you close it up here.
Well, thank
Armando,
you.
Thanks for your patience.
Good afternoon. Sorry I'm delayed. We had votes in the committee I had to attend to, but this is a very important issue to me. I'm Stephen Horsford from Nevada's 4th Congressional District, which is one of the new seats that was created after redistricting. My district is very diverse, 25% Latino, 15% African American, 7% Asian American. It's a working class district, both rural and urban. And for more than a year representing this district, the issues from the economy to helping business to getting individuals who are currently living in the shadows to be able to come out and have a pathway towards citizenship. The opportunity is now for us to address these issues. And the Senate worked in a bipartisan way to pass their version of the bill with 68 members of the U.S. Senate. And I want to commend my colleague here and others in the House for doing their part to make this process bipartisan as well. That's what I came here to do, is to work with people across the aisle to solve problems. And we know we have a broken immigration system. It's tearing families apart. We have a large number of deportations. We have dreamers who have an inability to plan for their future. And this can all be addressed by passing comprehensive immigration reform now. In my state, in Nevada, we have major business and industry that are backing this legislation. The gaming industry in my state supports this reform. The Las Vegas Metro Chamber of Commerce, one of the largest chambers in the country, backs this comprehensive immigration reform. I have an ag company, the Perry Farms, in the rural part of my district in Yerington that supports and backs this reform. So it's time for all of us to work together to get comprehensive immigration reform done now. And I'll just conclude by saying, I want to work with anyone and everyone to make this possible, and I do not accept that the Speaker Boehner or the majority leadership says we're out of time. H.R. 15 can be brought to the floor and passed in 15 minutes. H.R. 15 will only take 15 minutes to get through the process if the leadership decides it, because the support is there in a bipartisan way. I know in addition to those who've signed out as co-sponsors, there are other House Republicans who also say that they support a pathway to citizenship. I have colleagues in my delegation, Joe Heck, Mark Amadei, for example, who support a pathway to citizenship. And Congressman Joe Heck has criticized the leadership for not bringing this forward, and I commend him for recognizing how important this is. I also ask him to join with me and other members of the House who are ready to bring this bill to a vote. We can show the leadership for this bill, but it's going to take all of us working together to do it. So let's not give up. We're too close. Nothing easy is ever going to, nothing good is ever going to come easy. And this is one of those civil and human rights issues of our time. It's going to take a lot of strength and courage to get this done. And it's one thing to say you're for it, It's another to demonstrate it, like my colleague, Congressman Denham, and other Republicans have done. And again, I want to commend them for stepping out and doing the right thing and being on the right side of history. And I look forward to working with you till we get it done.
All right, on that wildly optimistic end note, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay and talk to the congressman. Thank you very much.